First of all, what is this? What's first? What do we need to do is the first thing. We need to repeal this provision that makes it impossible to restore cuts that have to be made during this downturn. You guys all raised your hand very quickly on TABOR and on Ref C. You remember that whole ratchet thing? The whole idea that it's an annual limit, and if it goes down in a year, then you start at the bottom, and so it lowers your ability to recover forever. Well, just keep that thought in mind, and now apply it to spending, not just revenue. In TABOR, it's about a revenue limit. In Arveschoug, it's the exact same ratchet, only it applies to spending on the operating budget. And spending on operating is things like Medicaid, higher ed, K-12, environmental protection, judiciary, corrections, all the things that we think about government doing with the exception of building things. Okay? So I showed you at the beginning that slide that shows how revenue has dropped. Arveschoug says that's the level at which we will stay. We will ratchet down our spending to the bottom of this recession and stay there. And yes, we get to grow from one year to the next by 6%. But think about that for a minute. Has the cost of providing health care gone up faster or slower than 6% over the last 10 years? Mm-hmm. When I was working for Wade, we looked at those numbers every year but one. It went up faster than inflation. The Medicaid numbers are now looking at 9% of increase each year, or last year, in medical inflation. I showed you those population increases. That 6% is a limit that was literally plucked from the air as a compromise back in 1991 by two legislators who were trying to stave off voters approving TABOR. And it's been a part of our statutory framework now since 1991, for 17 years. And what it ultimately means is that I was supposed to do this first. This is my little joke. So many people say to me, well, I'd love to talk about this thing, but I don't even know how to say it. And God, I know I can't spell it. So I want to get everybody as comfortable as we can talking about this stuff. So there's the spelling. I don't know where that G came from. You know, my husband's last name is Toastburn, so you know I can't really make too much fun of people's last names. But this is how it's pronounced. And I want everybody to kind of be okay. You know, we can say it out loud so that we can, you know, we can talk about it when in public at the cocktail party without getting to the point where it's like, well, I don't know what that thing is called. Now I've heard it referred to as flipping the bird. You can choose to use that reference if you like, but not all people are comfortable with that one. How this whole thing works, let me talk about this really quickly. This is a pie chart of how what total spending in the state of Colorado looks like. We get about $7.6 billion in general funds, 5.2 in cash funds. Cash funds are things that are collected for a particular purpose. They're a fee of some sort. If you pay a licensing fee. It is collected as a legal definition of something that is collected from a defined group of people for a defined purpose. Those are fees, and that's cash funds. We have federal funds, and we have reappropriated funds. For the purpose of this conversation, please ignore this yellow slice of pie, because it's just movement among here. And the other thing, and I'm really embarrassed, but you point this arrow down to this red slice, not to this green slice. When I put that arrow together, I put it in the wrong place, and I realized that, and then I didn't go back and fix it. I do so apologize for that. Sorry, Gretchen. Please invite me back, even though I didn't put my arrow in the right place. So about $920 million of this red piece here is transportation money. It's money that we collect in gasoline taxes that goes to build roads and bridges and all kinds of transportation stuff, except, of course, transit. Because we don't do that in Colorado because we're the West. But this goes down here, so a good portion of that is transportation money. Okay, so that's how sort of the budget works if you look at the whole state budget.
Harold, the 6%, okay, you probably got
I'm just too slow for you, sorry. The 6% limit, let me answer the anticipated question, actually only affects this slice of the pie. Okay? And not even, quite frankly, all of this slice of the pie. Because this is the total revenue, but a portion of this, if this amount of money grows faster than 6% from the prior year, it can't be used, whatever that growth above the 6% is, cannot be used to fund the operating budget. It can only be used to build stuff. Okay? I love the shaking your head. I love that. Thank you for that feedback. We're getting through. And that's what this says. It has to be spent on transportation and capital construction. And let me stop right here. We have a terrible transportation situation in the state of Colorado. It is abysmal. It is a mess. We have underfunded it, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. But I could say the same thing about higher education, Medicaid, K-12, and just about anything else you want to think about. And the issue really is, do you prioritize one over the other? Do we, by a formula, insist that our legislature have their hands tied? Or do we take that shackle away and let the legislature decide each year based upon the priorities of the economy of the time and the other demands that are being placed on them, that all of those things are funded on a level, that they all have an equal opportunity to be funded, particularly in light of the fact that transportation has some source of money. Remember that $920 million that I talked about? I don't see that anywhere in the Medicaid budget. It's a little hard to raise that kind of money from Medicaid patients in terms of co-pays. Now, why the legislature can and should make this decision, this change? The Arveschoug bird provision does not limit how much money is spent. It limits how the money is spent. If you go back and look at TABOR, TABOR says we want to reduce the size of government. We want to control growth in government. You could get rid of the Arveschoug bird limit. Nobody's taxes go up. Nobody's fees go up. And the legislature doesn't spend $1 more than they currently spend. All that happens is that they have the opportunity to change how they allocate or slice the pie.
How is the 7.7 determined on an annual basis?
Which 7 points?
The general fund.
This, how do we determine how much is in here?
On an annual basis, where does that 7.7, is that tax receipts on
Yes.
a backward-looking basis?
This is income
So
tax.
09 is based upon 08 tax receipts.
Actually, they what do I want to say? There's a word for it. They reconcile. So that the fiscal year 2009-10, let's go back. Fiscal year 7-8 is half of the calendar year of 07 and half of 08, if I pick the right dates. But it is the money collected from income taxes and sales tax, that second chart that I showed you. Okay? That's where that comes from.
But if that revenue grows faster than the 6% from the previous year, then as an expenditure chart, as a revenue chart, that's how that happens. As an expenditure chart, it's restricted to 6% growth.
And the remainder is
Transportation.
so it's intended as a savings account for transportation.
In essence.
In essence,
Right.
it may not have been intended that way.
So it's limiting spending to 6% inflation, twice the inflation rate over the last 9 years.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't think-
But it's not going up, it's going down, right?
Right now, it's going down, and
Right,
that
because
is
of the
one of the
percentage.
big problems with it, is this whole ratchet thing.
Right.
The other problem is that CPI is a measure of inflation, but it is not the measure of increase in cost of providing public services. Again, we go back to healthcare. Healthcare has increased at twice or 3 times the rate of inflation every year since whenever.
Because someone else pays for it.
That's
But, yeah.
exactly right, because it's been allowed to.
Right.
Well, and
There's a lot of
beca-
reasons for that.
I mean,
and exactly, there's
Indicative of the general economy. That's fine.
There's a ton of reasons, and one of the things I think is really interesting in Colorado, that we have the 8th highest individual premium or family premium costs in the individual insurance market. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is because we have one of the highest level of uninsured folks in the state, in the country. If people don't have health insurance, it doesn't mean they don't get sick. It'd be a good idea. I'd like to legislate that. If you don't have any health insurance, you don't get sick. You don't have accidents, you don't need any health care. But what happens is all those people who don't have insurance still have demands on the healthcare system, which then gets rolled out into everyone else and increases premium costs for others.